Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 9, Ouija Boards. Have you ever messed with a Ouija board?
Absolutely not.
Oh, just me then. I have played with a Ouija board before.
What happened? Do tell.
Well, I was at my friend Megan's house. Hey, Megan. There's no way she listens to this, but in the off chance that she does. And we found a Ouija board in the spot where all of her board games were.
I mean, it's a board game. It's marketed towards kids.
Right.
As a board game, which blows my mind.
And you would go down the steps into her, basement/garage area.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you're walking down the steps, there's, a shelf above the steps that had all the board games on it. Very weird placement now that I'm looking back on it.
Yeah. I remember a lot of my friends all had their board games in the basement too.
But imagine a shelf right there.
No. I know
it was
Austin's
weird
great grandma's house, I guess it's grandma's house now, has a whole shelf. As soon as you start walking down to the basement where the ceiling the floor ends and the ceiling begins type thing, there's a whole shelf right there.
So it's just a thing.
Yeah, I just don't know why.
Well, excuse our tangent about placements of shelves, but I remember being what is that? And we grabbed it down, and it was I think Hasbro brand. It wasn't even that old.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was old. Now it's probably at least 25 years old, I would say. Because it was a little bit older when we found it even, but we took it down and we played with it and nothing happened. I mean, it moved around when we asked questions, but I'm about 100% sure it was one of us moving it.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, that's what it's supposed to do. So
yeah.
Subconsciously or consciously.
Is there anyone here? Oh, it's sliding towards you.
Yeah, I think just the hype of this forbidden thing,
it's haunted. I think we even did it in the basement of my house, which couldn't have been haunted because my parents had it built.
Yeah.
And so the house was younger than me. We moved in when I was 4. That's when it was ready, but no one lived there before us. So it couldn't have been haunted. But it, of course, slid right over to yes.
So you guys are fakers. Okay.
Well, we were approximately 12. So.
But yeah, Ouija boards are marketed towards kids. It's a board game. And that's kind of how it started as well.
What's the objective to because it is a board game, but what's the objective? To see who can get sucked into the portal of hell first?
Me, pick me.
I'm already there.
I belong. Take me home. Sorry, Dad. When they first came out, they were marketed as divination tools, talking boards, where you could ask a question and miraculously the board would respond to you. So at first it was kind of almost like a magic 8-ball, where you just do the thing and some unseen force is supposed to reveal the answer. So it first started being advertised and really took off in 1891. That's when you first see the really big advertisements. A Pittsburgh toy novelty shop wrote, quote, "Ouija, the wonderful talking board." They described it as a magical device that answered questions, quote, "about the past, present, and future with miraculous accuracy," unquote, with never-failing amusement and recreation for all the classes. A link between the known and unknown, the material and immaterial. The Ouija board stayed pretty much the same since it's released. The typical Hasbro Ouija board looks like it did when it first came out. It's just a flat board with the alphabet letters splayed out in 2 half semicircles with numbers along the top, the yes and no words in the top upper corners, and then the word goodbye on the bottom corner. And then there's a planchette, which is now it's plastic, but it used to be a teardrop shaped piece of wood with a little hole or a little glass marble in the center of it, so that when you rolled over the word or rolled over the letter, you could see the letter through the little glass piece, and then that was specifically the letter that you used. It was meant for people to sit around the board. Everybody puts their fingertips very lightly on the planchette. You ask questions, and miraculously, the planchette would move to spell out the answers or to yes or no, goodbye, numbers, whatever. The Ouija board came out in the height of the American spiritualism movement, which, if you don't know, it was basically between like the 1840s and the early 1900s, where everybody was obsessed with death and communicating with the dead and having seances and speaking with mediums and spiritualism. And if you listen to our Sarah Winchester and Lizzie Borton episode, you would know that was like a huge thing for Sarah Winchester as well. The spiritualism movement really began in Europe far before the Americas. But in the Americas, it began with the Fox sisters. And if you don't know the story of the Fox sisters, it's kind of funny. I think later it came out that it was a huge hoax. But the Fox sisters came out and said that they would ask a question and then spirit would give them, a spirit or the spirit, whatever, would give them answers to their questions by knocking on their parlor walls. And they made up a system where the spirit would knock back a number of times. So like A is the first letter of the alphabet. If they wanted the letter A in a word, they'd knock once for A or twice for the letter B. And then they would have to sit there and spell out all of their answers in that way.
26 knocks for Z?
Yep.
Yikes.
Yeah. Like I said, I think later it came out to be this huge hoax. But that was a popular way of, or maybe they didn't hoax it, but a lot of people hoaxed that system. It was also the height of like people practicing automatic writing, where you basically, a medium would sit at a table and you'd put a pen and a paper in her hand and she would communicate or channel spirit, and she would just write whatever spirit would come through and write for her. Or they had table turning parties, which if you've seen some older movies or older TV shows where of like typical, it's like these old ladies in seances in the 1800s, and they all had their hands sprawled out on the table.
On their lace tablecloth.
On their black lace tablecloth with their veils in front of their eyes. And all of them would like channel spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And the table would start shaking and rocking and vibrating underneath their hands. And that's all that they would do, is just sit there and let the table vibrate. I don't know what the purpose of that was. But that is called a table turning party, if any of you are interested. Very weird. And like I said, also the rise of ectoplasm, which is, this was hoaxed a lot too, where you'd see like these mediums with these weird like cloud images coming out of their like orifices of their face, and it was just like this weird viscous substance.
I hate that word.
I know, I put it in there.
Viscous, just
I put it in here just for you. Turn. Just this weird substance that would exude from the medium's body that was supposed to come from spirit. I have no idea if that's actually real. That's something that I would like to do a whole episode on, is ectoplasm. Let us know if you're interested in that, because I'm very interested in it. Anyway, of course I would be, right?
Viscous.
Yeah. As you can probably imagine, as you have mentioned, waiting 26 knocks for a letter, among many, numbers of knocks for letters to spell out words, 2 questions, took a long time. Mm-hmm. And people eventually got really sick of trying to do it that way or faking it, whatever. And so somewhere along the line, people came up with these talking boards. And it wasn't until around the 1880s where a ton of different people tried to make their own and patent their own talking board. But the man that created the board that we know, the iconic Ouija board today, was Charles Kennard of Baltimore, Maryland. He got together a group of men that he, just kind of like multiple people that he knew that were up for the challenge of trying to create the talking board, because none of them had been patented up until this point. So once they created the stereotypical board that we know today, they needed a name for it. And a lot of people have different stories of how the Ouija board was named. One of the most common is that they took the French word for we, or they took the French word for yes, which is we, and the German word for yes, which is ja, and put Ouija together, or that's how it's spelled. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it evolved to Ouija board, but whatever. But
Americanization.
Yeah, dumb. But that's not how it happened. They decided that they were going to let the talking board, name itself. So one of the men that worked on the project had a sister-in-law who happened to be a medium. They gave the board to the medium. They all sat around, and the first question they asked was, what would you like to be called? And it spelled out the word Ouija, or Ouija. And when they asked, what does that name mean? The board replied with, good luck. Kind of ominous and weird. But it wasn't until later that it came out that the medium that they were using had on a locket with the profile of a woman with the word Ouija on it. And it said that it was a misspelling of Ouija, or however you pronounce the word. She was a author and a women's rights activist in the time, and it was very known that this medium was very fond of this woman. So it wasn't out of the ordinary for her to have some kind of memorabilia of her. She was wearing it on the day she named the Ouija board. Put two and two together.
Well, sketch.
Yeah. But that's kind of how the Ouija board came today. And this Charles Kennard actually patented the Ouija board. He went to the patenting office, and none of it had been patented before. The patent office wanted it to be proved. They didn't want to give them a patent until they could prove that this board worked. So he set it up right then and there in the office, and some of the guys in the office took part in the seance, I guess, the communication aspect, and they were proved wrong. It actually worked, and they were handed a patent for the Ouija board.
Oh.
And it's, despite many different variations of artwork, it stayed pretty much the same.
Wow. Well, like you said, the Ouija board is marketed towards children, and it's sold at Toys R Us.
Well, it was. Toys R Us went out of business.
Oh, well.
Fun fact, some guy in Pennsylvania that we just got back from, listen to our previous episodes, in our next one, had a giant Toys R Us.
The R from the Toys R Us sign.
Like
8
giant.
feet tall.
Yeah, just sitting up against his front porch.
Yeah.
Sorry, that just reminded me of that. Sidetrack.
Anyway, so you can get maybe even still can get a Ouija board at Toys R Us or another toy store.
Yeah.
Which, if it was truly just a board game, I feel like would be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And
when the height of spiritualism, when it came out, it was like seances and communicating with the dead was like a wholesome activity for the family. Like Saturday nights, you would do this before church. Like it was a thing that families
try to connect with grandma.
Yeah. So when it came out, it was geared towards family. And so I can see how the evolution of a game towards kids,
sure,
whatever.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Ouija boards is that if you are communicating with something, that's great, but it might not be as nice of a being as you might think it is. It might not be grandma.
No, it something disguised as grandma.
Using a Ouija board really just opens the door for spiritual communication, but you don't get to pick and choose who you're communicating with. Mm-hmm. You can have a conversation and communication with a demon in the area, any type of evil spirit in the area with bad intentions. An evil spirit and a demon can disguise themselves as a loved one.
Yeah.
And so that makes it extra dangerous because you think you're just having a good old chat with your great grandma on your mom's side, but in reality, it could be something that really is just trying to talk to you in order to gain something from you, like possessing your body.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, especially I don't want to say amateurs, but people who don't necessarily take it seriously or don't know a lot about the paranormal, doesn't necessarily understand the consequences of not closing down a communication session.
Right.
Like whenever we do investigations, we always open with the same kind of sentences. We always close and make sure we say, we are ending communication. It's now closed. Yep. We're done now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people won't do that. And that's bad juju.
Some paranormal investigators use it to search for spirits or entities, but most of them advise against it because it's not necessarily the board itself that's dangerous. It's the communication that you're seeking.
And it's such an open form of communication. We were talking about this earlier, how the spirit box we use is kind of hard to manipulate. You have to be able to communicate those radio frequencies and put your energy through it and all this stuff where the Ouija board, you can physically see the letters you want to spell out, assuming. You know what I mean? It seems to me, as someone who's alive, as a simpler way to communicate, which makes me think that more spirits would be able to use it.
Right. It's believed that the spirits that you are coming in contact with are on a lower astral plane. And when I read that, I was like, that makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. Like, when I think about it, I'm like, obviously they're going to be like, and to me, rewind, to me, lower astral plane is like limbo.
Yeah.
Like you're stuck between, like you're obviously gone, like you've passed on, but you're in this like weird space of like
The in-between.
still being on Earth versus whatever
is after
for you, whatever that is. And most of the time, experts, quote unquote, say that those spirits are confused or they died a very sudden or violent death, like murder or suicide, which could cause them to have violent or negative reactions to opening up communication because they're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This is not good. When using a Ouija board, people often hear demonic voices. They have unexplained feelings of anxiety or depression in otherwise mentally healthy people. What's that like?
What a life.
Tell me about yourself.
I want to get to know you.
What's it like? They hear noises and they see objects being thrown or moved. There's some claims of windows being blown out, but that's like
extreme.
That's like less common.
Yeah. I've also heard of people like trying to use a Ouija board and then having like demons' names. Just for, like the planchette moving to spell the demon's names over and over. Specifically the one that starts with Z.
Yeah, we're just...
If you say the name, it's supposed to be bad luck, so we're not going to do it.
We're not going to manifest bad energy into this
four
space.
letters, in case you need to know.
That's really all I have about, like, random shit, besides stories. I have stories. I have a random fun fact.
I love random fun facts.
Yes. Ouija boards have actually been used in criminal trials.
Really?
Multiple. But one of them specifically was in 1994.
Oh, so that's like recent. I'm shocked by that.
In England,
of course,
the jury,
they're more open-minded than we are.
Right? The jury used a Ouija board like while they were
like deliberating.
What? Okay. It was in the trial of Stephen Young, who was being convicted for a double murder.
Okay.
And the jury used the Ouija board and it told them that he was guilty or whatever.
Did they try to communicate with the murdered?
I couldn't find that.
Oh, of course not.
But they wanted to get some spiritual guidance, supposedly, in their hotel rooms or something like that. And obviously, like, they found out that they did that. And so it made it into a mistrial because you can't make your decisions off of...
quote unquote not real things.
Right. Like you have to take the facts of the case and make your own decision up without...
Because really that can be like, did he do it? Probably.
Yeah.
But that could be taken as an unfair decision because you were influenced.
Right. Well, they were influenced. The courts found out that they did that and they're like, oh, hold up. This is not good.
Hold up.
So they had to try him again because it was mistrial.
Did they do it again?
It's not double jeopardy. No, they didn't. But he was found guilty.
Okay.
So, I mean, it worked.
It worked. All right.
But he was found guilty.
How funny is that? Like, if you... Okay,
well, it's not... I mean, it's not... They didn't use it as evidence. The jury just used it to make their decision.
That's just so funny that they did that. I think if that was to happen here, like, say I was on jury duty in Florida, and I was put up in a hotel room with other jurors. Mm-hmm. If I brought in a Ouija board and like, hey, guys... I'm gonna get some spiritual guidance. I want to know if this guy really did this murder. Join me in this Ouija board to communicate with the guy he murdered.
Everyone would be like, no.
They'd be like, you're off your flipping rocker. Like, they'd look at me like I was absolutely nuts.
Well, they agreed to it. So, because how many jurors are there? Like 13?
People in England, you're cool. You know, like the one guy that's listening to us in England right now. Go you, man.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to homeboy in England.
Yeah, whoever's listening to us in England, thank you.
Yeah, we got one person listening in England. That's so cool.
Before we get into our stories, I have a few rules that one should follow when using a Ouija board. Number one, I would say don't use one.
Yeah, don't recommend.
That's number one. They're just known for having kind of some bad outcomes, and like, why risk it, you know?
Yeah.
But if you have to and you're just willing to risk it all,
If you're such a flippin' rebel
that you gotta use it and
Listen
risk
up.
your spiritual health as well as the spiritual health of those around you, then here are some rules for you. Number 1, don't use it alone.
That's funny that you say that, because in the actual like patented Ouija board, it's marketed for 2 or more people. Like it's not supposed to be used alone anyway.
You can use one alone. You should not.
Why?
Well, apparently having more people creates like a grounding effect. And so I think it's more like it's 3 against 1 or whatever.
Well,
And it makes it less spooky.
If you're using it alone and you come to me and be like, I was using this Ouija board alone and I got all these answers, I'm going to be like, did you know? Did you?
Liar!
Or did you just move it around because you were by yourself? And it's like, subconscious or not,
Right.
if I was alone with a Ouija board, God forbid, I hope I never am.
Right.
But I think my subconscious would just like, because I'd be kind of freaked out that I might just, you know, subconsciously move my hands.
It's a real thing. Number 3, use it in a dark and quiet place. Yes, it's more spooky, but apparently it's like a blank, quiet area for spirit to enter.
Why does it have to be dark? You know, have you ever noticed that? Like all the ghost shows, even we do it. We turn off all the lights to investigate everything.
Right. Little
Why?
candles here and there. You know, I don't know, man.
Well, who started that?
I don't know.
Are ghosts light sensitive?
You don't know.
That's it. Shout out to Cam. That should be a question you should ask. I have a list of my brother's very, very strange questions for ghosts.
Number 4, don't use it in a graveyard. Just don't.
But okay, you can't tell me that and not give me an explanation.
Well, I feel like that's just...
I'm not gonna, but why?
I think because it's overwhelmingly communicative.
Like my arms are gonna get tired from the planchette?
Maybe. Well, because when you have, I mean, how many people are buried in any given cemetery? What, like 100 at least, right?
Probably more.
That's so much spiritual energy. I feel like it's...
Yeah, but they can't all be there, you know?
I don't know, man.
Don't look at me like that.
I don't know, man.
Like I'm being scolded.
You can ask whatever you want, but they suggest having a leader ask the questions.
I feel like this is the only way I'm gonna fit this in for Cameron. If I'm ever gonna be a leader for a Ouija board, this is for you, Cam. I'm going to ask, can you still saute onions as a ghost? That is a legit question my brother wanted me to ask.
Well, he's a mini chef. It's real
He
questions.
is a mini chef. He's shout out to Cameron, man. Maybe the best omelet ever. Also, if you haven't put sour cream on your omelets before, do it. Life changing. Sorry. Continue.
Anyway, the reason that they suggest having a leader of the group ask questions is so that you don't overwhelm the spirit with scattered energy.
Okay, makes sense.
And always end the session with a goodbye.
Always.
Make sure to shut the board, put it away, say your goodbye. You're actually supposed to like take the planchette
And move it.
to goodbye.
I was just gonna make that point. Like, you have to do that. Like, you have to end it formally.
Formally in the way of moving the planchette towards the word goodbye, but also saying goodbye. This is it. We're done. Whatever. And sometimes if you have reached some level of spiritual communication, the spirit might do it on their own. Accept it.
Yeah, don't push it.
Don't push it because you might piss them off. And that's not good.
Not good.
And when in doubt, listen to your gut. If you don't like the vibes, end it. Solid goodbye.
Salad goodbye.
Don't be afraid to say goodbye. And you're in charge of the board, not the spirit. Because I think that's really important too, because in order to be able to command a presence or lack of one, you have to realize that you're in charge of the board. Because if you let spirit be in charge of the board, then they can just run it.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to note for any kind of communication in general is that you were in charge of the situation. Because I know, like, for me, when we first started doing, like, weird investigations, like, even just of my house, like, it was freaky. And I was, like, scared. And you feel so, like, I don't know, not small, but you feel unprepared. Unprepared. And because it's the unknown. You can't see it. You can't really hear it most of the time. So it's, and I think that's, like, I've had to work on that, too, is, like, being more confident in communication and taking charge of the situation. Just because, like you said, like spirit can, if they, like in some evil entities or dark entities, can sense your fear and be like, oh, I have a way in.
Yep.
I can take over this situation.
Yep.
And then if you don't say goodbye because you're scared and you forget, valid point, you're screwed. Because now you have some demon crawling all over you.
Yep.
Ruining your life. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
So in conclusion, be super careful if you're going to.
Yeah, if you must.
I will never touch one ever again.
No, I think I'm too freaked out to do it.
It's not for me. And
like there's other ways I would much rather communicate than through a board.
Right. I prefer the connect.
Which is a funny thing, like now that I say it out loud, it's all spirit communication. Mm-hmm. So I wonder why
the board is so specifically
scary.
Whereas, or urged against.
Yeah, whereas using a spirit box, I mean, there's still warnings to that. Mm-hmm. Say hello, say goodbye, be respectful, whatever. Every time you communicate with anything. We, even if we turn on the spirit box to, screw with the settings before we actually start an investigation, it's always, okay, goodbye, we're done. You know what I mean? But I wonder why, if you have any, weird stories or, can explain that, let us know on our social media, because I'm really, like I said, now that I said it out loud, I wonder why the board has such a spooky, scary rap to it, whereas using a spirit box is oh yeah, using a spirit box.
Right.
That just seems kind of odd to me.
Something to look into.
Maybe I'm hypocritical. I don't know.
It's fine. I have a few stories.
Ooh, I'm ready. I haven't heard them yet. I'm very excited.
Yeah. As far as I know, they're all true.
Okay. Grain of salt, as always.
Grain of salt. People exaggerate. It is what it is. I did find, this is real, use of the Ouija board is really prevalent in Mexico. And people in Mexico tend to have, I don't want to say a higher rate of, but that's the one thing I can think of, a higher rate of possession via Ouija boards.
Huh.
It's really common down there.
I know a lot of people of that ethnicity communicate with spirit, and that's a normal thing.
Right.
Here, it's people. A lot of people frown upon it because it's weird and it's ungodly or whatever.
Right.
Whatever you want to think of it as. But I know, like I said, people of that ethnicity, it's more normal to them to communicate with past loved ones.
Right. This story actually comes from Bolivia. In November 2014, 35 students at a school in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia, were taken for hospital treatment after playing with an Ouija board, locally known as the cup game. They were reportedly suffering from mental agitation, confusion, profuse sweating, rapid pulses, and trance states.
What?
Yeah. And over the past few years, like I said, many countries in South and Central America have been hotspots for the game, and there's many reports of mass fainting and spirit possession.
How many students?
35.
And they all played with the Ouija board?
Mm-hmm. The cup game to them.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And to me, it almost makes it so that it's a little bit more believable that way, because you're not going to tell me 35 kids came together and made up this plan to make it up.
Right.
Right? But it also feels like it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't really know.
I mean, if you go to the hospital, they have to treat you for whatever you say you have.
Right.
They have to at least look into it,
Right.
So they could have, but that's a lot of work. 30, if you're going to hoax something like that, don't pick 35.
Right.
It's a lot of people.
That's a lot. I also have another story. It takes place in the 80s. A group of college girls were huddled in a circle in the middle of a dorm room using a Ouija board. Their fingers were just barely touching the planchette as it sat around the board in a lazy figure 8 motion.
Oh, no.
And that's demonic.
Yeah, that. Don't know for sure, but all of the things that I've read or seen or whatever about Ouija boards is if it starts going in a figure 8, quickly say goodbye and sage the hell out of yourself or something.
Right. It's
bad.
No bueno. So there was another girl who was pacing back and forth by the doorway.
That would be me.
True that. One of the main girls, Anne, was considered a local Ouija board expert on the small college campus.
How do you get that rep?
Apparently just using it a lot. I don't know. The odds were good that on any given Saturday, a Ouija session would be in progress. On this Saturday night, the group of girls made contact with a restless spirit. The moment the planchette moved, Melissa, who had never used a Ouija board before, was convinced that it was demonic, and she jumped up and started pacing, and she refused to touch the plastic piece ever again.
Mm-hmm. Good call.
Yep. They asked the entity what its name was, and it responded with N-O.
Ooh, no.
They asked a second time, and it responded even quicker when the plastic pointer raised back to no.
No. See, that's when you're like, goodbye.
That's where you head out, because if it was somebody nice, they would say,
my name is this.
My name is whatever. Right.
If you're communicating with anything in any form, whatever, and it doesn't tell you a name or says no when you ask it for its name, bye.
Yeah. If it says no, then I would just take that as a sign to like dip right out, because names have power. It doesn't want to give you power over it. Yeah. And by not telling you its name,
you can't have any power over it.
Right. And that's, by extension, having power over you.
Ah, deep words from Alexis.
That's me. Great. Misty, a short-haired blonde girl sitting to Anne's right. Anne is the expert. She leaned forward and whispered, "Why?" There was a few more figure 8 sweeps, and it stopped, like it was thinking about the question. Finally, it slowly spelled out KILLED-MYSELF. Killed myself. And then it started to move faster in the figure 8 motion, like it was agitated.
Point, if I'm still there, I need to change my pants.
Yeah. So at this point, the planchette is going around everywhere in a very agitated manner.
Wow, we love agitated spirit boards.
Right. So Misty looked at Anne and was confused and asked the spirit, "Where?" And it spelled out its answer, "In the bathroom." Like letter by letter.
In this bathroom? Okay.
Yeah. So Melissa goes, "Oh my God." She opens the door and runs from the room. She's like, "I'm so done." The other 2 girls, who were also first timers, also ran out, eyes filled with terror, raced out of the room, and then Anne looked at Misty with a smirk.
I'm not liking Anne right now. She seems a little unstable.
Yeah, for real though. She goes, "Well, I guess that's a wrap," shaking her head. She looked at the board and said goodbye, and then there was just 2 girls left touching the planchette. It moved more slowly and then dragged itself to the bottom of the board and over the word goodbye.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. So the next morning, as all of the girls were getting ready in their dorm rooms, they heard a loud scream from the bathroom downstairs. They all ran to the bathroom to find Melissa standing in front of the mirror, dripping wet and wearing only a towel, one hand over her mouth in horror. In the steamed-up mirror, a fingertip had scratched the terrible words, "Help me." All of the girls ran out of the bathroom, screaming at the top of their lungs. The next day, a team of 3 janitors examined the mirror closely and uncovered the mystery. Apparently, the girl who killed herself in the bathroom from a few years before had written a message on the mirror with her lipstick. So anytime that anyone took a very hot shower, the grease from the poorly cleaned lipstick stain would repeat her terrible cry for help. It ends...
very cheesy.
But...
because here's the thing. If you're cleaning those mirrors regularly, you can get lipstick off of them. Like, the oils from the lipstick wouldn't still be there.
See, here's the thing I don't know about, though. Hear me out on this one. If you write on a mirror when it's foggy with your finger, right, it will stay there.
The next time it fogs up.
At least once. Right?
Do we do a test?
Debunkability.
Yeah.
But if you have like a shitty lipstick.
I have shitty lipstick.
And you write it on the mirror, like how long would it, like how many times would you have to clean it? And another question is it like at the top of the mirror where no one ever cleans?
Right. Like how tall are the mirrors?
You know what I'm saying? Like if it's like up above your head, like there's no like toothpaste splatter there, no water drop splatters.
This episode isn't going to come out for like at least another week.
We're going to test it.
I'm going to test it. I have a small mirror and I'm going to put it in the bathroom and I'm going to write "help me" on it. And
in lipstick.
In lipstick. And then I'm going to do like one spray of glass cleaner, one wipe.
And just see what happens.
Just like a lazy janitor would do in a dorm room.
Right.
And I'll post some pictures on Instagram
and
of
see
my,
what we
like
can,
how many times I can get it to keep showing up.
See what we can debunk. Even with all of the super exciting stories about Ouija boards, there is also some naysayers that say that the entire thing is a hoax. They're toys that turned into supposed tools of the devil, but they won't actually put you in contact with any demons, and it won't put you in contact with any spirits. It's actually thought that Ouija boards rely on the power of your own body. The scientific explanation actually comes from the ideomotor effect, and it's basically a way for your body to talk to itself. So the ideomotor effect is an example of your unconscious, involuntary physical movement. So that basically explains that we move when we're not trying to move. It's kind of like a hypnic jerk, which is that feeling when you're about to fall asleep and your body jerks awake, like you feel like you're falling. That is a really abrupt version of the ideomotor effect, and your brain is signaling your body to move without you making the conscious decision to move. But the ideomotor effect happens when you're awake, so the reflexive movements that you make are much smaller than a hypnic jerk. In the case of a Ouija board, your brain may unconsciously create images or memories when you ask the board questions. Your brain tells your body to react, and you're not the one telling it to react, your brain is. And that causes muscles in your hands and arms to move to the answers that you, maybe unconsciously, want to receive. There are actually many scientific studies done with this, and there was a study done where they blindfolded participants, and they found out that blindfolded participants would give off much more incoherent messages on the Ouija board versus those that were not blindfolded, which makes sense because if you have a blindfold on, you can't choose which letter you want to go to. And it's a little bit sad because you really want it to be true, and it very well could be, and I think it is very much real, but I maybe not on the scale that we make it out to be. So if there is a ghost in the room, it would direct the planchette to spell out coherent messages without any assistance. But when there's no ghost, it kind of devolves into a game of gibberish, because if you can't see, you can't choose the letters, and you can't make up words as you go. Like we said earlier in the episode, if you or anyone you know has any awesome Ouija board stories, we absolutely want to hear them. We're very interested. Neither one of us has had any experiences to speak of, so we're definitely down to hear them, definitely down to read them, and even share them if you'll let us. Reach out to us on Instagram at Sunday Night Spookies, on Twitter at Sunday Spookies, and on Facebook at the Sunday Night Spookies podcast.
We also like to mention that we do have affiliate links in the description box. If you use the links to purchase anything, a subscription, whatever, we do get a small kickback from that. Obviously, no one is obligated to do that. Even if you just listen to the podcast, it's a huge help for us. We appreciate you so much. If you want to start your own podcast, we have an affiliate link to Buzzsprout where you can go and start your own podcast. Buzzsprout is an awesome website. That's what we use to host all of our podcast stuff. We also have an affiliate link to Instacart. I use Instacart every single week. I hate going to the grocery store, as I've said before. So you can get your groceries delivered right to your door from your local grocery shops. It's awesome. I also have some Amazon affiliate links in the description to our EMF detector, our spirit box, stuff that we use and love and trust every time we go on an investigation. Again, we do get a very small kickback from that. No obligation. It's just there if you'd like it. We also have a PayPal that you can donate to if you're feeling incredibly generous. We are two very broke college girls who have a lot of ambitions in the spooky world, and we'd really like to go do some investigations of some pretty big places. So if you'd like to help out our funding with that, again, not obligated, we will be forever in your debt for that. And if you donate to PayPal, we will give you a shout out on our social media if you'd like.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
Join us next week for our on-location investigation of Hotel Kennard in Pennsylvania.
New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, stay spooky. What the fuck? Sorry, Marty.
It's Mr. Right to you.
They tested the Ouija board by blinding participants. No, they didn't blind them. They blindfolded them. We don't blind participants of studies. We blindfold them.